But anyways, yeah,
That's good.
thanks to everyone for tuning in and listening. For those that are new or for those that are listening for the first time, a quick introduction on Roots. It's a series of conversations between my mom, myself, and our family to understand our history, to understand our present, and to link the two, the intent to connect us and even stronger than before. And so we have
Yes.
just gone through an incredibly perilous journey, from understanding what it was like for my mom to grow up in Vietnam, through a communist takeover, through escaping via boat, and going through this ridiculous journey of just like semi consciousness, of starvation, of thirst, of battling pirates. And we are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel where the immigrant journey really just starts. And that's touching land down in Indonesia, right, Mom?
Indonesia. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Second chance in life that we actually see real hope. When we
Yeah.
saw the horizon, there's a shade of the mountain, and there were hope. Everyone was ecstatic.
Mm-hmm. And I think I want to start here by asking you about, and we're going to jump right into it, but I think I want to ask you about kind of like your expectations when you touched down land, like what you were feeling and what you were thinking about, versus when you started settling into the camp, like what was actually happening and how that may have been similar or different to what you were expecting.
Well, to be honest, the first thing in our head was food.
Yeah.
I mean, we were hungry. We were super tired and weak, and we were wobbling. For 7 days on the boat. I
Yeah.
have never been on the boat before that, let alone 7 days out in the ocean, in the big ocean, that in that boat that it's always felt like you are in the motion.
Yeah.
So we just could not wait to step out of that boat. And we
Mm-hmm.
were, everybody was excited, but of course you have to have order because you can't just, you have to go on the single fires or double fire to slowly get off the boats and get onto the dock. So Letong was the one that we, after hours and hours of negotiation. Now, it didn't take any time soon just because they have space in the refugee camp that they can take us. So
Mm-hmm.
we were afraid again. It's like we're docking outside the island, miles away. We can saw it, we can see the island, but we weren't able to pull in closer because negotiation was not quite finished. So it took hours. We get there like in the evening, and it took my dad, I think, I don't know how, it's a couple hours, but it felt like eternity.
Mm.
We just like, we're here already, and it's hot and it's muggy, and why aren't we getting off, And they say the people on land have to wait for their commander to the whatever the procedure that has to be done in order for them to accept us as a new batch of refugee, because I think there's boats that's constantly coming out, and they were getting to a point that they still have space, but they're pretty filled.
Yeah.
So finally, when the night fall in, it was dark, and they start letting us, and agreements say that they're gonna let us to get onto the dock and go into the town.
How small was that, for just for my context? Was it like
I
could you look out and like see another island out in the distance, or was it like very small?
It was a string of island. It's a lot of land, but the
Uh-huh.
population is only a few hundred.
Okay.
So the population is, I looked up on Google, and I forgot what it is. You have to go back to the book. But it's only, our boats probably double the population from that island. Our boats got 500 people.
Jeez. Oh my gosh, that's right.
Yeah, so that island is super small, and then on the beachfront, you see strips of houses,
Mm-hmm.
and on the side, two sides of the dock, And when you walk into the dock, if you go straight, there's a cement walkway that to go into the marketplace in that town. So
Hmm.
literally, that's probably no more than a couple hundred, maybe 100 or 200 houses in that island max, I would
Mm.
say. But we were super happy that we were able to get in, and all I could think of is I hope they have something for me to eat.
Yeah.
I am so hungry. We had a little crackers from the oil rig people who gave us, but that is just nothing. But
Yeah.
we were wobbling getting off the boat, and everybody, take hours to get off because now the boat was as a disarray. Things are everywhere, and
Yeah.
you were on it for 7 days. People were getting sick on the boats, and people were um, the smell was awful, and all the stuff has been emptied out by the pirates.
Hmm.
um, Clothes, thing that you sleep on, you sit on, and everything's a mess. So everybody was just looking for their own possession
Hmm.
and looking for your own family. So you gather up your family
Yeah.
and wobbling, get off the boat. And I'm telling you, that feeling, it's so surreal. I mean,
Mm.
getting off that boat, I felt like I'm walking on the cloud, just like
Yeah.
I'm light and everything is moving, everybody, not just me. Like the
Yeah.
whole entire earth underneath you are
Oh,
moving,
yeah. Hmm.
and you're just like disoriented.
I can't imagine that because I mean, I know I kind of get the feeling after being on a boat for like a couple of hours, it's kind of like that. But like a whole week, I
Yeah.
can't even.
A whole
Oof.
week when you're not eating or drinking, so you dehydrated and you hallucinated and you just
Yeah.
so the feeling was, but you know what, we were having smile on our faces because we are not sleeping out in the ocean for
Right.
one night.
You had made it
we,
through more or less the worst of it.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
And we got to land, and we don't care what's on land, we just want to get off that boat and
Yeah.
have a stable ground to slum on,
Yeah.
even just to sleep.
Do you
And
remember things like do you remember like the first meal you had like after getting off the boat?
um, to be honest, I think so when we get off the boat, we didn't get meal or anything right away. There's um, no refugee commissioners, United Nations, anybody who's there waiting for us to give us water or food or
Totally.
anything. So
Hmm.
it's just a small town that is in the middle of the night. So it's completely quiet. There's a few street lights.
Oh
You
wow.
get off the boat, and there's some commotion. I mean, commotion is from our boat. 500 people is a big army getting
Yeah.
off that boat. And
Double the
we
island
will,
size,
yeah,
no
so
joke.
we will gather on the dock. We get off the dock. It was a long dock. So I remember getting into that dock, and then just wobbling out to the what they call a street is barely a street. In my memory, it was just like a big cement road between two road of houses that lead from the main dock, and we would just gather over there, and we didn't know where to go, what to do.
Yeah.
So I think the governor or whatever, whoever the official on that island was kind of, and there's a handful of guards, people, police or whatever in that little tiny town came
Hmm.
out, and they kind of gather us. And I remember meeting this guy who talking to my dad, because my dad was part of the representative in on the boats, so he's
Right.
got a lot of contacts. So he heard somebody speaking something, and this guy come over and say that he said in Hokkien, like a
Hmm.
very similar dialect with Teochew. He say, yeah, Lucy Tongkok Nan. It's like, are you Chinese?
Hmm.
So we were like, oh my God, there's another Chinese on this island. So
Yeah.
we felt like, wow, somebody speak Chinese to us. So my dad was super happy. But the guy, he's a local, so he's also a Chinese descent. So he didn't speak a whole lot of Chinese, but he spoke some. And he met with my dad, and he said something about, we can go to the back of his house in the dock, because every single house there, they have a wooden deck that look out
Hmm.
to the sea. So, it's almost like the house is on the beach and they have a deck out in the sea that is just like with stealth.
Yeah, just kind of like a lean-to almost in a way.
Something like that, yeah. So
Yeah.
it was a big deck in the back. So he's
Hmm.
like, he took us maybe 15, 20 people. My family, all my cousins, like all seven of my cousins, and my friends, and, family friends. So we got like 20 or 20 some people dragging all those bags. And
That's really nice of that guy. That's
yeah,
insanely nice of that guy.
yeah. So I think, it would just feel like, in Chinese, they always say they call it gui nang, meaning, somebody like an angel from God sending,
Hmm.
to meet you, to help you. And so we
Because
went to his.
because when you think about it, right? Like that, like did he have a family too?
Yeah, yeah. So he lived with his parents, and
Wow.
so it's very common for Asian to live with your parents, even
Yeah.
when you're married.
Hmm.
So he has a wife and he has like two kids. So one of his daughter is maybe a couple years younger than me. Her name is
Hmm.
Tiang. I still remember her name. I still remember what she looks like. And then she has her parents. Her mom speak Hokkien very well. Like
Hmm.
she's still very Chinese. So she has really communicated a lot with my parents, with your mom, with my mom and my dad in
That's great.
Hokkien.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
Hokkien and Chinese and Teochew is very close. So that's how we communicate. So when we went to his backyard, we were super tired, and even though I was really hungry and everyone was really hungry, there's no food. We just settled to, sleep. That's all we need to
Mhm.
know. We're just gonna find a place that is not shaking, that's not moving.
Yeah.
And so we were sitting out in the dark, and it's a clear night. It was beautiful star again on you're sitting out in the bay, the beach, whatever you watch up to the sky. It's another really starlit night, but it was not out in the boats. So that's the difference.
Yeah.
And
And I
we
think I
gathered.
think one of the most beautiful things that like I would love to touch on later is like a time and time again, I love how easy it is for kind of like that barrier of like almost mistrust, almost kind of like wariness, it
Mhm.
drops when you find someone that speaks your language, that like can like cross
You
that
do.
barrier. It's almost like the change is almost instant. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you see a lifeline because somebody speak the same language.
Yeah. Especially
You
in that
you have
instance.
that
Yeah.
trust. Yeah, you have
Mhm.
that trust right away. But I want to
Yeah.
say that later on, maybe a little bit later on, we're gonna
Hmm.
see how this relationship play out, because there's people who taking advantage of refugee,
Hmm.
and the trust that we gave him, uh, being betrayed. That's all I want to
Oh,
say for now. But he
sure.
was really nice at the beginning, and maybe at the end too. But you know, I didn't even know any of this until I wrote the book, and my mom told me about the story.
Oh.
But so we went to his house, and his parents, really nice. His
Hmm.
parents, his dad probably is, I want to say Middle East, because he does not look like Chinese.
Okay.
He might be Indonesian, or he might be a descent from a different country, from
Hmm.
India or somewhere, Pakistan, or somewhere in the Middle East. I want to say,
Hmm.
um, I forgot. I did a research, and it's in my book. I should know better, but anyway, I had it in the book. His mom is purely Chinese, so his
Hmm.
mom welcomed us the next morning when after a good night's sleep, that we're not afraid that we're gonna drown, afraid that we're gonna, with all those worriness, that we just set aside, and we were able
Yep.
to get a very good night's sleep. I want to kiss the ground, just saying that. I would never step off off the ground, go into another floating device again. That's
Mm.
that's almost scary. It was. So we get up the next morning, and I think she gave us kanji, like a very soupy rice, the next
Hmm.
day,
Yep.
and we would just like devour whatever little things that she cooked a pot of rice,
Hmm.
and very very dilute, which is good because we haven't ate for so long, and your stomach cannot really take it if you eat hard stuff right away. You're going to throw up and get sick. So you
Yep.
have to start with the soup. So that was perfect, and it was like the best food ever that
Hmm.
we got. Just very plain rice kanji, and we regained. And I know that I didn't really go to the bathroom for like a week
Hmm.
because that was just like just nothing. I was
Yeah.
completely cleansed. Um,
Yeah.
and the feeling was just like, so appreciate for just anything, food that we were taking for granted,
Yeah.
when you are able to have food around.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's how we started, and then it was still chaotic because there's a lot of time you get onto the ground, you have to go register, you have to get all this paperwork, and the government or the Indonesian have to know who's who. So the
Yeah.
next day was just like a series of um, I don't know, it's so chaotic. Like
Hmm.
they they had people um, that land in Indonesia, but usually they take it to a remote island where it's all
Hmm.
refugee. But somehow we were able to accept it into this island. But it is supposed to be a temporary island. It's supposed to be get all your paperwork, and then you're gonna ship out to the other island with all the rest of the refugee.
Yeah.
But my dad scalped around, and he find out that if we have money to rent a place or to do something, we can actually extend our stay over here instead of get transport to the other island, which is another hour of boat ride. And
And you
that
just.
island has no people live there. It's just purely
Oh.
refugees, tens of thousands of refugees that you're going to have to build your own hut, and you have to gather on your wood, and you go find your own water.
Yeah.
And the whole entire island was still very at the very infancy stage, so there's no UN that established anything. There's some sort of help from Red Cross and United Nations, but not really. So we were buying time, and we were hoping that this Chinese family will help us to find a place that we can rent, because
Hmm.
at least we have clean places to live. We have water that pump from the faucet somewhere. They do have water pipe.
Yeah.
They do have housing. There's a lot of refugees, so a lot of business. The guy's name is Ramad.
Uh-huh.
Um, that is not his real name. I forgot what his real name is, and I'm digging out of my memory and trying to find out, and that's the name that I gave him.
Hmm.
Um, so he has a grocery store up front. His
Yep.
parents and him, they run a grocery store, which will make tremendous amount of burgers and whatever. So, and he can't speak Vietnamese. So, and I was able to speak Vietnamese, Chinese, and whatever dialect I could do it all.
Yeah.
So,
Just based on the
so
number of schools that you went around and like all of like your education and like everything like that, like it's just ended up being
yeah, just
helpful.
communicating with refugee. He needs somebody who can communicate with the refugee, because
That too.
um,
Right.
that is where his business is.
Mhm.
People buying food from his grocery store.
Yeah.
So the deal is, if I work for him, I will earn my 3 meals, and then my parent would be able to temporarily stay in the back of his backyard until we find a place that we can rent.
Hmm.
So that's what we did, and I was working in his grocery store
Yeah.
for 2 weeks.
Yeah. Was there any point where like you would you would you had thought about the situation that you were in, where you were at, what you were doing, and you were like, okay, this is it. Like this is what I need to settle into. Like this is what is going to be life for me now? Or was there a always this kind of like, all right, we need to get out of here. We have to figure out like what's after this.
Yeah, nobody knows what's going on. We all in the unknown territory. We know
Hmm.
that we get saved from the boat. We are
Right.
allowed here, and we know that everything's going to be temporary. We just don't know how long. It could be
Right.
3 months, could be 6 months, could be a year, could be 6 years, could be 3 years. We don't know.
Was
But
was
at
there
that
ever like
time,
a yeah, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. Hmm.
at that time, we have heard people already been in Malaysia island for a year. Like my
Hmm.
cousin was trapped in Malaysia for months. We know that at least it's going to take months before we can get to any other country, but we didn't know
Hmm.
how long. And you just go with the flow. It's nothing you can plan because
Hmm.
it's not something that you can control.
Right. It wasn't like, okay, so like it wasn't like, okay, your dad is like, all right, let's try and get out of here with the target of like going to Belgium or going to
No.
the United States. It's just, all right, we just have to survive, and wherever the wind takes us, we're just gonna go.
Okay. One thing about refugees have no choice. Refugees are at the mercy of any country that want to sponsor them.
Hmm.
Refugees are beggars of the world because they are in a very helpless situation. There's
Hmm.
not like, oh, I want to go to Belgium, I want to go to Australia. You can't.
It's like
Whoever
not a
accept you,
yeah,
if you don't go, then it's your way of saying that you can be here forever.
yeah,
It's like people are looking for a way to be out. They don't care if anybody sponsors them now.
yeah. This isn't a foreign exchange program. You
Right,
can't
right.
got
So,
it. Yeah.
so only good country and country that capable, like Denmark, Sweden. I mean, people know that it's a cold country. We didn't have too many choices. We just have to settle for whoever want to sponsor us.
Yeah.
And the idea is, if you go into a certain country, you become their citizen, and if you want, then you can migrate to whatever country. But right now, the situation is to get out of the refugee status.
Okay.
And
So that's what you guys were working for. I mean, like, doesn't matter where you
we
go,
would
doesn't
just
matter where
wait.
you end up, just like get out of refugee status, which
We
means
just wait.
leave that, which means
We just wait.
you just wait.
You just wait. You just wait. There's no process. You don't know who's going to sponsor you or how long it's going to take. So you just wait. Every day, you just wait to see what happens. And that is the most brutal part of being a refugee, because you get trapped in the camp and you are waiting for the UN to supply you food. That right now, they're not talking about getting you to go anywhere yet. They have to settle you down. They have to take care of your food rations, priority. They have to feed you first. And then
Wow.
people will get sick. So they have to establish some sort of a temporary hospital or some sort in the refugee camp to take care of these people, because there's malaria, there's mosquitoes, there's bugs, there's all kind of things, and people are weak and their immune system is not good. So yeah, you are just in the waiting period.
And so
And
up until that point, there's literally nothing you can do.
nothing we can do. Every day my dad would go, and the first thing is you gotta register. And by register is you have to tell people your name, your birthplace, your country, your boat ID, because very much the boat ID is what you have. So I, for a long time, KG0108 is the name, if the number of my boat, and then we
Hmm.
get assigned a number. I used to memorize every single number, because that means life and death. If you forget that number, you might take a long time to find out what it is. So,
Well,
so you will assign for that family as that number, and then there's a lot of time that people have to re-register who they are. So a lot of people that they lost all the paper, or the paper got wet in the sea, they don't have the documents, so they have to redo everything,
Mm,
and it might take a long time. So a lot of time that people take advantage of that time to reduce their age or bump up their age.
right.
So a lot of people at that time was doing that because they don't want to be in the working age. So if you were like saying that you're 18, you're gonna say you're 16 or you're 15. So that give you a extra few years that you can actually learn the
Right.
system.
And also like uh I guess like the helping out, the parties that were helping would prioritize like younger people and like
Yeah,
women and children and stuff like
right.
that. Yeah.
And my stepfather who bumped up like 10 years of his age. So if you're 30, you say you're 40, or if you're 40,
Yeah.
you say you're 50, because they were hoping that by the time that they get to new resettlement, they're old enough to not to have to go out in the labor force.
So there's this like massive period of just waiting around, waiting for an angel to come in and kind of pick you guys up and take you to whatever's next. But during that entire time, you are entirely focused on, well, how do we make the situation, like work in our favor? How do we, how do we find food, shelter,
Yeah.
comfort?
The
Uh,
focus is how we're going to get food tomorrow.
yeah.
Where we stand in line to get the ration. Like we got sardine, canned food. Maybe we'll get a little bit of rice, and now you have to go find where's the pot. I know that we did take a pot and a pan from Vietnam out because
Mhm.
you have to have something, right? So we did bring a pot and a pan with us on the journey. Beside our
Mhm.
clothes, we did have a pot and a pans. Um,
So this isn't any different from like what you were doing before almost. You're still responsible for, I'm assuming, a large portion of what your siblings are doing. Like you're still,
yeah.
trying to like ferry back and forth, trying to like get all these different types of puzzles together to just like get money so that you can get food, right? Like this isn't any
Yeah, there's
different.
no money. We have, like I say, that we still have some dollars that we tuck in the embroideries of our shirts, and my mom have
Yeah.
a lot of other trick that she hide the some of the golds and the money in our clothing and things that we wear. But at that time, you don't really need money just yet because money, you have to know how to exchange it. So right now we were just exchanging labor for food. that's
Hmm.
what that's what I did.
Yep.
My dad is busy around to go find out where to stand in line to get food. My
Hmm.
mom is helping to manage my brothers and sisters and settle them down, and I was helping on the store. I mean, the next day, I think, I had like one day, and then with my bobbling, wobbling body, I was standing outside the store helping selling food, grocery, because, that's to exchange for, is the deal. I work for my 3 meals, and then also for my parents and my family to stay in the back until we find a place. So my
And
mom
you're and
did.
you're and you're 16 at this point, right?
I was 16, yeah. I was 16.
Did and
And
and there was no like notion in your mind that was like, I'm missing out on being a kid, having a normal kid's
oh
life,
my
doing
God,
normal kids
how
things.
selfish are we? But we're still thinking about being a kid at that
I'm
situation.
I'm selfish. I'm selfish for
Well,
you.
you
Like
would
like
not. If you were
I
born in that situation, you would not. Trust me.
it's just such a different like I like you talk about how you love school so much, and I'm like, oh, I had to wake up at like 6:30 in the morning to get to high school, and it's like, wow, like what a different like perspective, you know?
Well, it's just because that you were raised in a totally different environment, different society, different expectation. And
This
at
is
that
something.
time, I did not
Yeah.
even think about anything. Everything is focused on the family, survival of the family, that
Hmm.
we are a unit of one. We are a one unit, and everybody is looking out for everybody in the family. And
Yeah.
there's no me time because, everybody chip in and everybody do whatever is necessary to do to help us survive the next day.
Yeah, this is something that I absolutely want to get into later because it's like that is very that for you formulates a very specific set of values and beliefs that you carried with you through a lot of different stages in your life, and it's entirely different from mine. And I think, this is a conversation for a later time, but, I'd be very keen to really pick that apart and understand, like, what's different from you versus what's different from me, and why, like, what
Mhm.
is the root cause of that. And a
Yeah.
lot of it, I think, is now I'm starting to see that it comes from the differences in our upbringing, the difference of what we value, what we had to value.
Right.
And for you it was a necessity, definitely, versus for me, what I feel is like definitely a luxury at this point. And it's not to say that, like, it's not to say like one is better than the other, but they're vastly different.
Yeah. Whatever circumstances that you were born into or you
Yeah.
were putting at, that's creating who your mindset, who you are, and that's how I can't even honestly saying that anyone at that time is thinking about, oh, you know, put me first and I don't know. You can't really do anything anyway.
Yeah.
There's nothing, but the disciplines that my dad have with us, we we're not allowed to complain.
Mm.
We're not allowed to say this is what I want to do. I want to just go and see what's going on out there. No, you're supposed to be doing things that you need to be done as a daughter, as a son.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the circumstances is so different. So it is really hard to compare oranges and apples. So,
But it gives me a lot of insight into, like, why you think the way you think. And again, it's just like I'm starting to get that feeling and understanding. But
mhm,
now that you've given me so much more context behind it, it just validates it. And I'm like, oh
yeah.
well, like, it's like I almost wish I had the ability to understand this at an earlier age, because I would just be so much less angry at you.
Well, you know
um,
what? Every single teenager would be upset at their parents. Doesn't matter what. I think
mhm,
it's very rare that a teenager be mature so much ahead to totally understand their parents. I
mhm.
would be a little. That would be a little abnormal.
Yeah. I think a good way to end this episode is, I just want to hear about anything that you looked upon fondly while you were on that island. Just,
Yeah.
things that, you keep as a close or special memory, or things that you really enjoyed. Whether that was like
Well,
the
I
the
met new friends.
yeah.
I met new friends, and I met a bunch of friends that speak Cantonese, and we would just kind of hang on. Teenager, you make friends very quickly, and then
Mhm.
there's a guy who also worked at the shop with me
Yeah.
in that shop, and he's a couple years older. So I think, but he also claimed a couple years younger on the paper, and
Nice.
he arrived like a month or so before I did. So
Okay.
he would stay in another an island. So there's three different islands that they put refugee in Indonesia. Beside that, the island that we're staying, it's called Letong, right? That's the place that
Mhm.
we stay. And then the other three islands are remote, just refugee. So he was supposed to be belong to. He's supposed to stay in the other island is called the Fly Island because there's so many flies,
Yeah.
and they nicknamed that island is the fly called Dao Rui, meaning the flies island.
Mm.
But he also wanted to stay here because it's got more of amenity. You don't have to fight all these bugs. And so he also asked for a job to work in the store because they need carry heavy stuff. So he can carry heavy stuff, bags of rice and sugars and whatnot. So he became my friend.
Yeah.
He became somebody I talked to, and I was kind of shy still, 16 years old girl, and sometimes you just, but it was necessary because I work with him, and
Yep.
we have to fold paper because they don't have plastic bags, so we have to make our own paper funnel. So when
Mm.
people come buying sugar or rice, that we just use that paper funnel, and then you put the rice in there, you weight it, and then you just wrap it with the newspaper
Yeah.
as the wrapping. So we have to do a lot of that. So yeah, it was a little fun because I think that he was kind of having a crush on me, which I didn't know.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, it was such a different time frame that you get off all this thing, and then now you just felt like, somebody appreciate you, somebody is really nice to
Right.
you.
Just like and it feels like that that fondness comes from the things that you generally deal with as a kid. you know,
Yeah,
like crushes, like
yeah,
chores, like some of the more
yeah.
basic stuff.
Friendship,
Yeah.
somebody
Mhm.
listen to you, and you be able to talk same age, not your parents, not about, doing thing, but, what did you go to school? What did you like to do in
Yeah.
school? Where
Yeah.
did you live and type of
Hmm.
things that we share. And
Yeah.
it was really nice. So he actually did stay a little bit in my family, just like have meal with us, and and I think my dad got a little scared.
No.
My dad is feeling like, this is a good place to have a relationship, And I
Yeah.
was really innocent. I just treated him as a friend,
Hmm.
But I felt a little bit because it's not just a girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
It's somebody is in the opposite sex, so you feel a little different.
Hmm.
But he was only there for a month, and then he got sponsored by Germany because the German come and sponsor all the minority, anyone that's come to the island supposedly under 18, the
Hmm.
German would took them, and under the status of orphanage, even though they're not orphanage. I mean,
Right.
they left the country by themselves. So there's five of my cousin
Uh-huh.
that that my dad took with us on the trip. Two
Yeah.
from my dad's brother's kids, and then
Hmm.
three from my mom's sister's kids, and they
Right.
all reported under 15. So the
Right.
German took them, and they were only at the island less than 3 months, and they got sponsored
And,
by the
and your
German.
family didn't want to do that because that would split you guys, right?
No, we can't because hey, I'm with my parents, so I
Right.
have parents, but they claim that they didn't have parents with them. They didn't claim my dad and my mom as their aunts or uncle relative. They just claim that they are orphan. They claim that their status is minor and they don't have family with them.
Right.
So the German would sponsor them. So like I said, being a refugee, you are always look out to see who can take you, who can sponsor you, and you do all things to be at that country, even though splitting out with your relative. And my mom and
Hmm.
my dad was a little, not upset, but like feel hurt because my
Yeah.
cousin just didn't want to stick with us. But we can't blame them because we know that
No.
the days ahead are
Hmm.
going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Um, we don't know how long we're going to get stuck in here. We don't know where we're going to go. So if anyone have a chance, just go. We,
Yeah.
you know, we don't want to hold anybody back. And
Yeah.
I was sad because now all my cousins gone, and so I make new friends. So those are a little fond memory, but it didn't last too long. But then only working for like a month, and then we found a place that my mom and dad rent a place, And that's
Hmm.
when my mom and I starting up a new business at the
Yeah.
refugee camp, renting
Hmm.
somebody else's house,
Yeah.
a little
And we
quarter
and
of the
we I
furniture.
definitely want to get more into that next
Mhm.
session, because
Yep.
I think that is also an aspect of your childhood that's, again, very different from mine. But I feel like the other thing that I'm taking away from this is like the experiences that you had that are more in line with what I experienced growing up as a kid. Like, they were just so much more impactful and um dynamic for you, just because they were fleeting, they were few and far between. But I think that's a particular level of conversation that I want to talk about later as well,
Okay.
because what you experienced very sparsely was something that I had the luxury to absorb myself in all the time.
Yeah.
And that is what.
And and I think if you are trapped with me in the refugee camp somewhere when you are 15 or 16, you will do exactly the same thing
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of that's the foundational block. One of them that leads to how different we are as people.
Yeah.
So that I definitely want to unpack in
Okay.
later on as well.
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of better memory and a lot of fun memory because when you're a teenager, I have to say, a lot of time teenager are looking forward to hope,
Yep.
and that's what I was. I'm always hoping things gonna go better. Another day closer to our new destiny.
Yeah.
So
Well, thanks very much, Mom, and thanks everyone for listening again. This has been another episode of Roots. Mom, any final words before we hop off?
yeah, and if you are curious about my story, go ahead and read the book. I think you probably, if you want to, you can ask your local library to carry my book so you can borrow,
There you go.
or you can go online on Amazon and purchase it on ebook or on a paperback. But if you want a personal signed copy, then you can go to my website, leatran.com, and get the book so you can follow the conversation and then you can understand a little better what we're talking about. And I personally hope that if you have a journey, not a refugee journey, but any type of journey with your parents, it's just so good to be able to have a conversation. And I didn't understand how much Alexander didn't know and think the way he thinks. So thank you for sharing with me, Alexander, because I had no idea that you were surprised the way that I just thought that I don't know what I'm thinking, but I didn't think that you would be surprised listening or reading all of this, but
But no, thank
evidently
you for
you are.
opening up. And again, I mean, it's just like it's stuff that we never really talk about.
Hmm.
But I think now that I'm in like a headspace or level of maturity to understand it, it just provides a lot of helpful context. And I think it's going to fuel a lot of good conversations going down the road.
For our
So
audience too. Hopefully, they
yeah.
will they will bring the conversation and talk to their parents or their children.
Mhm. Absolutely.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks to everyone. Have a great rest of the day, and Mom, I will catch you in the next time.
All
Next
right.
episode, we are
Thank
going to
you.
focus on the continuation of the refugee camp. We're going to talk about the foundations of my mom's entrepreneurial streak, and we'll dive right into that next time. All right. Take
Okay.
care,
All
everyone.
right.
Bye.
Bye.